Alright guys, back with another video, and this time we have the best Storm player in the room, Dylan Warren. And he was the first player to ever win a regional with the leader that he played this weekend, Trunks. And yeah, he won the last regional in Orlando with the deck, and I played him in Swiss. He was my only draw. It was the craziest match between both days. I played him in top 8, and I managed to get the win. It was a 40-something minute game 1.
Yeah.
And that's not really heard of from Storm matchups, really.
5 energy, almost decked out.
That's how crazy it was. But he's going to go into it. His deck is insane.
Alright, so starting out with the first part is pretty standard. Just the Storm package, the swap characters. For Successor, doing 2 Videl, just because I don't always want to see her. The big thing I'm doing is I'm doing 10 2-drops.
10 2-drops.
A lot of people tell me I'm crazy, but I don't like going Bardock into nothing. And even though I had them, I still went Bardock into nothing multiple times, even with 10, and that just felt insane. Bardock standard, Grandpa go on at 2 because you need it sometimes, and if you have it at 1 and it's the last life, it can lose you a game.
A good swap engine, yeah?
Yeah. Mai, which is one of the benefits of Trunks. A lot of people say Guine is just as good. But the problems are 2 things. You have to have Bardock in play.
Yeah.
And there's some times where if you play the Bardock, it will cost you to get behind. Or
it's also a blue card you can charge.
Yeah, the thing is, if you're tapped out, this is a lot easier to play where Guine, you have to have the Bardock in play first. So this is just more universal. It's also blue for Beam. Overwhelm cards, this is one of the flax I got with the deck, is just how many I play. I play 2 Mira and 2 Fu. I actually hardly ever win with this card. My most common line of play is doing Mira to knock them from 3 to 2, because the hardest part of the game is when they sit at 3 life.
Or sit at 4 in general, huh?
Yeah, 4's tough. 3's where they really just defend. Any player, especially Storm Mira. I played 5 Storm Miras yesterday. Drew with you, and then drew with Alejandro.
So he didn't lose at all in Swiss?
Yeah, it was 5-0-2, and I had never lost to another Storm deck until Trey got me in top 8. Crazy match, beat me down, handed me my first whooping from a Storm deck.
That was fun.
But my logic is, Storm puts so much in the grave. Anytime you miss an Overwhelm turn, I feel like you're leaving potential on the table. Because you can pretty much afford to overwhelm every turn, just like
especially in some where you combo.
Yeah, just like say like a Demigrid deck. If a Demigrid deck goes a turn without overwhelming, it's kind of ridiculous because they're leaving that potential on the table. That's why I started running the 3 Lights Guide.
This card was literally the most pressure for literally free.
Yeah, and people say like 7 black cards is way too many. But there's a lot of times where I'm tapped out. My opponent goes negate. I think at the Orlando Regional, I was playing my teammate Travis, real good player. I think he did 5 straight negates. And at that point, you can't untap. So that's where the Lights Guide for the free Overwhelm and the Mai, so you can just untap the energy. Because sometimes you got to extend. And Trunks, he gets the hand advantage from drawing, but he doesn't get the same energy again as Harudagarn does.
For you guys that don't know, this guy, when you combo on either side with a energy cost 2 or more battle card, you draw a card. So when he super combos, he'll draw 2, and his big turn is insane. So if he flips on his own, he'll draw an extra card. It's pretty insane.
So these are pretty standard, just super combos. I went with this one just because 10K on either side.
And you're going to awaken too.
Yeah, it's hardly ever relevant, but occasionally there's been times where I want to protect a Goten to get the extra card. So say it's their last attack, I know it's the last attack of the turn and I'm not awakened. I'll defend a Goten with this because, yes, I'm going to lose 1 for the draw, but I'm going to gain an extra attacker and I'm going to gain a card off the Goten. So
that's the only advantage I really think that Trunks has other than Mai, is the fact you're playing a 10K always, and my Hoy is not always a 10K.
Yeah, so this, very rarely do I want to do that, but it's nice to have the option. 4 unyielding, pretty standard. Even with the Borgos and everything coming out, I think it's still going to be an amazing card. You just don't play it, and then until you have something to deal with it, and then if you can pop the card,
it's your MVP.
Then you go into it. Yeah, it's the reason why Storm runs. A lot of people look at Bardock Goten, but why don't? My argument to that is, why doesn't a red leader or a green leader run away with the Storm package? It's because of unyielding. So, yes, this is insanely good, but unyielding puts it over the top. I played 2 Unbreakable. 4 was way too clunky. We went back and forth. You were playing the Gohan that combos itself into play.
And I played 3 cells.
And the villainy cells. I'll switch these to the villainy cells eventually so I can foil them out. It was just I didn't feel like changing cards.
It didn't matter if it's red or...
Yeah, just so you can foil it, make it shiny for whatever. But over the free Han, the draw just came in clutch more. I sided the free Han against Janema Mill at Nats, but I switched it for this one. So against Janema Mill, you don't want to draw as much, so I was putting free Han in over these at Nationals. But I decided to change it today. This card just always has value. It's never bad. I played 3 of this card. I was one of the people at Nationals that I comboed and didn't get the double strike off this. So people told me to just cut it for Champa. But the argument to that is this card is still better. You just have to play smarter. I pointed the card.
Sometimes you don't want the double strike, I guess.
Yeah, so the thing is this card is better to play. It just adds an extra trigger you have to remember. So it makes you play better. I don't think I misplay a lot, but I do misplay. In one of our matches, I forgot to play the Mai, so I try to play real tight, but every once in a while I miss something. But I never ever forget this card. People tell me to stop saying it. I point to it, and they tell me just to stop pointing it out every time. 4 Senzu Bean, that's pretty standard. The one thing that's a little different, I think, is 3 Nimbus. A lot of people don't think this deck needs as many negates main board, but there's a lot of times where people just expect you to not play negates, and a lot of times that would won me matches. There were times where people swung in and just thought I didn't mainboard Nimbus.
Let's just say in our match, if he wouldn't have Nimbus me 3 times, he lost. Game 1, and then he won game 1 because he Nimbus me 3 times.
Yeah, I definitely needed all 4 every game. The only time it was bad was at the very end when I was 5K away from being able to live. When I Unbreakable twice, I drew Nimbus and Successor. So I boarded out a Successor so I wouldn't draw it on defense, and I Unbreakable, drew Nimbus Successor. But 9 times out of 10, you want one of these cards, and then if you have more than one, you charge it. Storm Mirror, maybe you hold 2. And then the Legendary Flute.
The Legendary, the one-up.
Yeah, it's one of it. It comes in super clutch. You have to have it. There were games where in top 16 I won my match because he Nimbus and I fluted his Grandpa Gohan blocker back to his hand and then mirrored him for game.
Yeah, I was trying to play around your flute too, if you didn't notice. I literally checked your drop air like 4 times. Like, dude, there has to be no flute, right?
I knew I had to you had to have the play in mind, so I had to play that way. So I'll go to sideboard. I was sure where I should throw it. This was probably the best card I sided all day. We were talking about maybe main deck.
This card is godly.
The reason was for the Storm Mirror, and I just happened to play 5 Storm Mirrors. So in the Storm Mirror, what you really want to do, whether it's Gine or Mai, you want to load the board with blockers like Mai, Grandpa Gohan, and then you want a Nimbus so they can only attack with 1 more battle card. So then you have block, and you create a wall so that they can't kill you that turn.
If you Nimbus, then block, and then their turn's over. But this right here says you don't care.
Right, so this one, not only can they not activate blockers, but it was also super relevant, they also can't combo from the field. So they can't even use these 5Ks to combo. So there were times where my opponent had like 4 blockers, and maybe that 20K combo could have helped them. But this stops that 20K combo, and it stops the blockers.
And it stops about 10K a battle, sometimes, yeah. Like you said, yeah.
And there were times where I did the double strike crit. Sometimes I didn't need it for that, but I needed a free overwhelm. So I played it, I swung, and I went for double strike critical. So people ask why I don't play battering. And that's because standard for Storm, what you expect Mira into double strike with a battering to negate. But my most typical line of play is to swing with lead when they're at 5 life, combo to double strike, put them to 3 life, Mira, put them to 2 life, and then they're in kill shot range. If I need to stall for another turn with Nimbus and blockers, it's fine. But the thing is, if they're at 2 life, they're always 1 attack away from death because I have the double strikes, I have the Scientist Ooze, I can make double strike really easily. So the biggest thing is getting them to 3. So I like to double strike to 5 to 3, Mira from 3 to 2, and then go in. I board the 1 Nimbus, mainly just for the Storm Mirror. It's the only time I would ever want 4.
So you got these?
Yeah.
For solid?
I'll board Nimbus out against decks I don't need it. I mainly, if it's a deck I don't think I need the negates, that's when the batterings come in. Like when I played, your buddy was playing Janema Mill, 2 Nimbus come out, 2 battering go in, because I don't feel like I need the negate as much. I board the 2 extra Mai. Same thing. Even though like I knew you had this in, just you gotta have the blockers for that matchup. The other clutch one was the Risque Ran Fan.
Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah, this comes in clutch a lot. Some of the Shenron decks, one of their best techs against you is going Child's Wish for Android 16 blocker, and it gets really obnoxious. My buddy teched this. One of my buddies, Rory, teched it at Nats and played on stream, and then some of my other buddies played it. And the Shenron played the Android 16 blocker and thought he was able to be safe, and they played Risque.
Players for round 6 are now being posted.
Played the Dark Black Mass Sand. I never actually boarded in, but I assume I would want to board it in a grindy Shenron match. If they're super defensive, like blue-yellow, I don't think I can kill them right away. Then I put this in. If it's not a super defensive build, I don't feel like I need it. The Cronoa, just because you got to have it. My buddy played against Shugesh in top 16, and he cut it from the sideboard. I told him you got to have it just for the...
And he lost.
Yeah. Crusher Ball, if decks go into big people without deflect. So I was mainly doing this back when U7 Frieza was big, and Hercule with Demigra. So the Hercule decks, when they would drop Demigra, I would Crusher Ball it, and then pretty much just win the game. And same with U7 Frieza. They go into Victory Strike, and what I would do is I would take Nimbus out, put in Crusher Ball, rest it, and then that would pretty much end the game for me. So that's the deck. It's literally the same list I won Orlando with. You would think I didn't play test at all because I played the same list, but I play tested a ton, and just in the end, we couldn't find a deck that was better. My idea was that if we found a deck that was clear-cut better, I would switch, but we found decks that could beat this deck in testing, but never a deck that could take it over 50% of the time. And my logic was, if we can't find a deck that can beat this over 50% of the time, then we just play this deck.
Great deck, man, and appreciate the deck profile.
Yeah,
and
thank you.
This is the Trunks God, and we'll see you guys next time.